Hello, how you doing? This is Carlos Levexier. I'm a board member at King Garvey Co-op, longtime activist in this neighborhood, fourth generation resident of the Fillmore district. And, we're back here at the site of King Garvey where, we had MLK Day of Service, an event to inform the people of their rights. And also what it was a situation where on the eve of President Barack Obama's inauguration, we did the Martin Luther King Day of Service, and everybody came out, and we was able to, congregate, bring some speakers and information out here, reflect on Martin Luther King's information and his legacy, and and then deal with this community's issue. So the first thing I'd like to, talk about a little bit as an opening is to just say how, the people here have a choice, and their choice can be looked at two ways. Basically, they're 30 years into a 40-year mortgage, and what sums it up is two different scenarios. One, there's somebody saying, hey, let me make a loan on your property, and what we'll do is we'll buy you some carpet, and we want to make your place look better, and, buy some drapes and that sort of thing. But after that, you'll still be poor. Or the other way is you can come in, you can hold on to your property, and as you hold on to your property, you can, create ways to get whatever you need, and then at the end of 10 years, on November 1st, 2019, you make the last payment, and all of the restrictions are gone, and then you become property owners in the middle of San Francisco. So basically, that's what not only myself, but a lot of speakers have been, informing the people of King Garvey and the King Garvey community about. So what we'd like to do now is, go into some footage of, what happened and the people that spoke on it, and we have a certain little presentation for you. So the first speaker that we'd like to introduce is Ross Mirkarini. Let's see what he has to say, and then I'll be right back with you.
It's nice to see you, Carlos. And it's great every year to be celebrating Martin's birthday on this day here at King Garvey. And the great thing about our district in District 5 and the Fillmore and the Western Addition is that there are multiple events all around, and it demonstrates how we know how to celebrate this critically important day. But obviously it's just more than just about today. I mean, this day is about celebrating Martin Luther King, who made it possible for the day we're celebrating tomorrow, and that is the inauguration of President Barack Obama. None of this would have happened if it wasn't for, say Rosa Parks, back in the 1950s, who made it possible for Dr. King making it possible for Barack Obama. And now Barack Obama sending a message to us all on what happens the day after the inaugural. That means we're all going to have to step up to the plate. And it means that all those people here in the community and in San Francisco and nationwide who've been making a difference are going to be asked to make that much more of a difference, and find people who have been ignoring the call to service and ignoring the opportunity to make a difference. They're going to have to step up. This country and this city is in an economic crisis. We're in a catastrophe, a crisis we haven't seen since the Great Depression in the 1930s. And the federal government isn't going to be able to bail us out. It's going to take the hard work and the sweat equity of all of us in this community to work together. No matter if we agree or disagree, we're going to have to step up to the plate. And I think the people in King Garvey and pockets of people within the Fillmore and the Western Addition have demonstrated what it means to transcend all this adversity. There are so many things that one could say what's wrong, but I can tell you what's right. This is the first year, beginning January 1, redevelopment is gone. After 45 years of the reign of the redevelopment agency here in this community that has controlled the A2, known as the A2 area, and part of the A1 area, it is now back into the hands of the people. And the people of San Francisco in this community get to decide its land use vision of where they want to go. We're now going to be able to see, I think, mom and pop businesses that were hamstrung because of redevelopment law have a greater opportunity to come back into this community. We're already starting to see that in the Fillmore. Now we just need to make sure that when those businesses come here, they hire our people. And I'm a stickler on that, that if we're going to open up the kind of economic opportunity. It's an opportunity for people outside San Francisco. It's for those people who live here in the community who are hosts to these businesses. That's critical. We've been saving our schools every time that they implement that buzzsaw and chop down all our schools. When they went after 6 out of our 8 schools in this area, man, we stopped that hemorrhaging so that 6 of those schools retained, and we protected those schools to this very day. Now we're starting to see these schools grow where it's not a problem of declining enrollment, it's now becoming, can they even get in? And when they used to say that this is a city and this is a neighborhood that doesn't have families, that's yesterday, man, because now we're starting to see more families and more kids in this area where it's beginning to reverse the course of all those dire predictions. But there's one thing overarching that we need to rally around, and that is that this city is not progressive as long as it continues to ignore the mass exodus of the black population from San Francisco. And as long as we keep seeing a decline, I think, of influence from the very populations who helped make this city great, this is what detracts from San Francisco being a true progressive city. And that is what we're here to work about. And this is what we're here to remind ourselves in the eyes of the Dr. King dream and in the vision of President Obama. Now that call to service is here for us to move forward with. Good to see you.
Okay, that was a little clip on San Francisco Supervisor Ross Mirkarimi from District 5. And basically what he said is that a big problem in San Francisco is the fact that blacks have been moved out. And so the thing is King Garvey Co-op is an opportunity for people to, reverse this process and hold on to their property and become owners, by remaining on track to mortgage payoff. Now, another speaker that, blessed our camera and our mic and imparted some information is a guy who kind of, started King Garvey early in the process, and his name is Ulysses Montgomery. Why don't we turn to his comments? Thank you. Mr. Montgomery was actually, he came out of MIT and came to San Francisco and was convinced to stay around and help the community. And in that, he was involved in, building this co-op, and before it was a co-op even. And, so he basically, as Ella just said, he considers this his baby. So let me, let him say a few words about that.
Greetings. As Carlos just said, this is my baby, but mine and Ella Tyler too, because Ella Tyler, Bill Bradley, who's now over Shaka, Tamatra Scott, Julian Richardson, and a number of others, we all worked together to build this project by and for the people of the Western Addition. And we still feel this project should remain owned and controlled by its residents. And this idea of stealing it away from the residents, which the federal authorities, HUD, the San Francisco Redevelopment Agency, and the mayor's office have been trying to do for 5 years, with the assistance of some people in the project that are somewhat confused about what they're doing. This project belongs to the residents. They have all of the rights of property owners, including the rights of freedom of information from any and all governmental agencies that are trying to deprive them of their property rights. I'll let Miss Ella say some of the things.
Thank you. It is my pleasure to see this project having existed this long for the people in the Western Addition. I was secretary of FCDA in the beginning before the project was built. And I just hope with all my heart that the people in the Western Addition will continue to own this property and by all means respect it, treat it as their home, and enjoy the future of the life of the project and their lives. Thank you.
Another thing I just thought about, Martin Luther King was a classmate of mine in Boston. He was going to Boston U, and while I was at MIT, we met. I met his wife, Coretta, before they got married, and we were all very close friends. We named this project Martin Luther King Square right after he was assassinated. And we named it Marcus Garvey based on Marcus Garvey's record as one of the pioneer proponents of black ownership and property rights. So this property, Marcus Garvey Square and Martin Luther King Square, are historical projects. They are sacred projects, and we will fight with whatever means we have or can get to see that the people that are living here will own it and control it.
Okay, that was Ulysses Montgomery, and now let's turn our attention to another shareholder at King Garvey, Daniel Landry, and let him impart a few words of wisdom.
Sometimes it's Supervisor McCarimi and sometimes it's Professor McCarimi. Okay.
Sorry, man. I just got carried away.
No, that was great. Good job. And
It was right on point.
it was on point. And Supervisor McCarimi is also having a child.
My first
You know what I
child.
mean?
Right.
And so when he was just talking, and I was listening to what he was saying, and he was talking about family friendly, and I was like, how excited he is about that child. I know that he's pushing for, family friendly policies and family friendly, champions. And so, you know what I mean? It started looking like a more of a common denominator with regard to the families of King Garvey and our supervisor that represents us, you know what I mean, in City Hall.
Simpatico, man.
Yeah, it is great. So maybe Daniel Landry might have a few words.
Well, definitely. First of all, giving honor to the Almighty God that brings us always through ugly tornadoes, storms, and all them disasters and things that make civilizations sometimes just fold and go under. On the eve of the inauguration, we want to give thanks to, of course, Dr. Martin Luther King and even Dr. the most honorable Marcus Garvey for laying a foundation. Because without that foundation, Carlos Lavexier, Daniel Landry, and Ross Mercarimi, and even Ken Johnson couldn't do what they're doing today, which is recording and which is documenting what needs to be documented, which is new hope. And at this point, as a shareholder resident for King Garvey since 1977, I'm inspired and I'm encouraged from what I can see, because we're in, as like the supervisor was saying, a crisis here in this city and nationwide. Wherever you go, it seems like low-income housing, affordable housing, whatever name you want to call it, people are leaving and exiting the inner cities. So what should we be doing in this hour? What we should be doing is what we're doing right here today here in King Garvey. We should be giving our service back to the community to inspire others to come out of your apartments, come out of your homes, and donate some time. Educate yourself, but like our Professor Tashaka say, education without liberation is no good. So we have to use these educational tools now, and we have to use the system that is in place. I love the way Jim Montgomery put it in terms of freedom of information, because it's not right for us as shareholders here in King Garvey to not want to look further and see what is going on with HUD. This HUD works for us. This government works for us. And it's upon each and every shareholder to educate themselves about the bylaws, about the regulatory agreement, about the occupancy agreement, and to know what everybody should be doing, and in particular themselves as owners. But in closing, I just wanted to say be encouraged, and definitely, there is a good time, and there is, yes, we can in terms of the Obama administration, but the hard work is always at ground zero in the grassroots work. Thank you.
Okay, so, that was some nice words by Daniel Landry, longtime King Garvey shareholder, resident, grew up here. And so let's go to Sharon Jones and listen to what she has to say on the matter.
Sharon Jones here from King Garvey. This cooperative is under all kinds of siege. There are people who are trying to take the property, but the way they're doing that is by forcing us into a refinancing, terrorizing people into believing they need to refinance, and then extend the restrictions that are currently on it another 45 years. This meeting today are gathering in honor of bottoms-up economic development. One of the themes of the Obama administration was to bring together the kind of expertise that most low and moderate income people don't have available to them. Real estate people, bankers, CPAs, accountants, in other words, who are able to do financial planning and investments. People who also organize the struggle to own the property in the first place, and people who are able to place the struggle that is here for ownership and continued ownership of this property in the context of the historical struggle of minorities and low-income people, anyone who is not of the upper class, wealthy, generally white American, who can afford property, who has these people on their payroll, and they know the value of property, and they come with an understanding of how to make money, how to keep money, and what the legal system permits and doesn't permits, and how to work things in their favor. They have what is called access as well as knowledge. So today, what we were doing is bringing together people here in King Garvey to come and present to people who live here the information that they wouldn't otherwise be able to get. And one of the things that's very unfortunate, because there are people who don't want us to have that information. They changed the locks on the community center on Friday. Only 2 people who weren't here had the only ones with a key to it, so no one could go in to use the restroom even, let alone have the presentations and the workshops inside. So we had everything outside today. The Family Resource Center gave away books to children, showed a lot of the benefits that they have at their program that people could come to, and all these presenters discussed with a few owners who did have the heart to come out under the circumstances where they fear they're going to be retaliated against if they're seen out here associating with people who have a different position than they're told they have to follow. And anyway, we filmed it. So now we're going to be able to get by DVD or CD into every household here the information that they were afraid to come out and get. It's a shame that in America that those who have are so determined to take from those who have not that they'll terrorize them for reasons that are totally irrelevant into believing that they don't have a choice. In fact, this property is owned by a corporation. The corporation is wholly owned by its shareholders. Any other corporation in America, the shareholders determine what happens to their corporation, and the decision making and the executive decisions and who represents the corporation are all determined by the shareholders. Here, there was an illegal takeover of our corporation to make sure that those who opposed refinancing weren't seated on the board any longer, so they could have people who would vote for the refinancing. The refinancing it's a monumental debt. Whether it's going to be 40 million, 43 million, or what, we really don't know. We keep getting different figures for the amount of the loan, and there is a term in the agreement that was signed sight unseen with the developer, giving the developer the ability to do this without competitively bidding, that he would be able, if he sees in the course of doing the work that he estimates needed, if he sees anything else, he'll be able to go out and get additional financing. And as it happens, we don't need the refinancing at all. We don't need to borrow the money that is being proposed to borrow at all. We don't need any outside investment whatsoever. Our operating income is $3.5 million. We have $1 million saved. Our reserves are full to the brim. So all of the work that's estimated that could be done and which we plan to do is all doable with our operating income. And the people who live here don't realize that. And the information that they're given is misinformation. They don't know
that the mortgage is only $180 per household per month, and that the new mortgage would be over $4,000 a month per household. They don't realize that with $180 a month, we could easily pay the mortgage. We have $520 coming out of every household out of pocket on average, even without Section 8. We could pay that, the utilities, the insurance, meet all the mortgage requirements. We can't pay all of the current management fees, but one of the things we learned today is property 2 blocks from here that has 298 units has $1 million a year as their, might have been 2 million, let's say 2, is their operating budget, and they've done all of their repairs with their, and they've operated for half of what it costs us to operate, and ours is not in the condition that we will make it be in if we control and manage our own income the way we should. Thank you for being willing to listen to this struggle, because it keeps coming up. It's been coming up annually. They will tell you that, oh, yes, that property is in terrible condition. No, we spent $5 million in 2 years making this property decent, safe, and sanitary for the first time in history. They don't tell you that. They don't tell you that we don't have any current Section 8 violations. Right now, what we have is some work that we need to do to prevent future problems. If we don't do siding work and roofing work, we may have problems in the future. So we want to do it now, and we can affordably do it now. So again, you may hear of this again, because we're only 10 years from paying off our mortgage, and our 211 people who are heads of household here and shareholders here will own this property in 10 years if they do what any other American would do who has property. And I thank you for any assistance that you can provide in the way of talking to people in the city and the redevelopment agency and HUD to tell them, back off, don't take this property. These people need it and they deserve it, and you ought to, as the federal watchdog, make sure that they get what they paid for, which is this property, and we pay for it every month. Thank you. Bye.
Okay, now we want to have some words from Professor Oba Tashaka. He's going to make it brief. And, basically, Tashaka was a person that was involved in King Garvey at the beginning in terms of going to Washington, D.C. and, advocating for the legislation of low-income housing here, and particularly this plot. And also, he's been at San Francisco State a professor for a number of years, decades actually. And also, has gotten involved in the King Garvey fight. Brought his students in and began to educate the people, did a protest down at Citibank, with regard to the financing, and, is here to share a few words.
King Garvey is a cooperative that's owned by the shareholders. It was created out of the San Francisco Civil Rights Movement. Residents took it over in '78 by buying it from HUD. And in 10 years, they'll own it outright with mortgages of $180 a month per unit. In 10 years, they'll pay that off. If they have to go through refinancing, which they'll only do if they're fooled and tricked into it, they'll end up with a mortgage of perhaps $40 million for total cost for the entire unit, whereas now less than $3.5 million is owed. And at market rate, they could end up with mortgages costing each person $3,000-4,000 or more per unit. Residents have been scared into believing that if they don't refinance, they'll lose Section 8. Section 8 has nothing to do with refinancing. Residents have been told that they need refinancing for repairs. Otherwise, they'll be in violation of HUD and will lose Section 8. The housing units here meet the safe and sanitary requirements of HUD, which is all that's required for HUD to continue its management here. HUD does not own the property. The shareholders own the property. So the thing is, shareholders have to decide whether they're going to exercise their power, keep their units under their control and own them in 10 years, or whether they'll be saddled with a $40 million or more mortgage, which they will never own because most of these owners here are elders, and which their children or grandchildren will lose because they've been promised that Section 8 will cover the market cost of housing, bringing it down to Section 8 level. But there's no guarantee that Section 8 will be here. And given this economy and given the nature of HUD that wants to privatize everything, it's very unlikely. So the issue for residents is, as Jim Montgomery said, people have to understand that we either stand up and fight or we end up being rolled out. And if we're rolled out, we only have ourselves to blame.